Hansen grew up on a dairy farm, just like the 5 generations before him. But after he came back to Iowa after finishing college, he had some ideas for the farm, and now those ideas have led to another one. Hi, I'm Dave Price, and this is the American Farmland Owner Podcast. Hansen's Dairy has cows, obviously, but also kangaroos. Yes, kangaroos in Iowa. And there's a reason for that. We're going to get to that in our conversation. There's also ice cream, more than 20 flavors. There's a reason for those too. And there could also be a new market for a new type of milk. Let's start our talk with Blake about the history of this farm in Hudson, a community of about 2,900 people in north central Iowa. All right, Blake, tell us a little bit about the history, because your farm goes back a long time. You're generation number 6 out of 7, right?
Correct. Yep. So the farm started in 1864. It's been well in the family for 150 years. Like you said, Dave, I'm the 6th generation, and the 7th is here on the farm working, and then some are off in college and trying to find themselves in this world. So
aren't we all, though?
We'll see what happens. Yeah, that's true.
We've seen so many families have to leave the dairy business. It's just so freaking hard to make a go of it. How have you all been able to do it for such a long time?
The big change in our operation is our on-farm creamery and agritourism. That provides a lot of income and consumer demands, consumer needs, when we can be open to the public and be open the farm up so the public can come see where their dairy products are produced. So I think that's the one big aspect that we have going for us versus other farms, is those two things: on-farm creamery and then agritourism.
All right, so talk us through that a little bit, because you're sort of the instigator with that, right? You go off to college and you come back with this big idea. So you have to convince mom and dad to go along with it, and I assume your siblings at some point, right? So how did that come about?
I was a little nervous at first after graduating college and, bringing this idea to the table. But I figured, well, this is their chance to dive in and go with it, and at the time, one was a teacher, one was going to college one was a hoof trimmer, one was a teacher, and then one was working on another dairy farm in Illinois. So once we got everybody together and on board, it kind of just made sense that everybody wanted to be here, and each brother would have their own entity in each of the business. My oldest brother is involved with the distribution of the product, and then the second oldest is the creamery manager, and then the third is the crop manager, and then I take care of the livestock and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice that I have 3 siblings in on the operation, doing each different aspects of the business, which it all is very important, and it makes the business run smoothly with everything has to work together to make the product go. So it's kind of nice to have everybody around.
So how did your mom raise 4 boys? First of all, that's its own separate episode here. Any woman who's raised 4 boys. My mom raised 3, and she could probably write her own book about what an experience that was. So your mom did 4. How do 4 brothers coexist in this operation? Is that challenging? Are you all just that close that it works?
It's always a challenge, and we all understand that. We all have different ideas, but at the end, we all have the same goal. So that's one thing that people need to understand, that um, it's nothing's going to be easy, but if we can consult with each other and try to make things work for the better for the business, life's a lot easier.
So can you walk us through, if I'm following the math right, so would your mom and dad would be the fifth generation of the farm, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so you went off to Wisconsin for college, you came back, you've got this creamery idea. It seems like they had to have a lot of faith in you here, right? Because this would substantially change the direction of the operation to expand into creamery, right? So what was that conversation like?
um I think a lot of it was coming from my father. He was the instigator of this whole thing, because um he's the fearless leader. He's the
Okay.
one that always enjoys taking risks. And since I was the youngest brother, I had the idea. He was able to go with it because he's the fifth generation and he had the funds to help get started. And then we also helped funded it, so he had basically put all of our brains together to make it work. So most of it was going through him and other help from other creameries in Wisconsin, and um, to help get us started. So it's been interesting.
So was it your time in Wisconsin? Is that why cheese curds are part of this operation? Don't those people eat cheese curds like 3 times a day?
They probably eat 5 or 6 times a day, including their snacks. But actually, the cheese curds was the last thing on our mind. It
Ah,
just, people were asking about it as we were, um, running the creamery. When we first started the creamery in 2004, we just did one kind of milk, and that was whole milk. That's all we did. And then the consumers were asking for more products. Then they wanted skim milk, and then that led us to having more cream. And then they would be asking about butter, and then we start making butter, and then we would start making cheese curds. So it just started with whole milk, and then it moved on to ice cream and other products. So that was one of the challenges for us, is meeting the consumer demands and try to figure out how we can do that with the size of our creamery and the amount of product that we have, milking 150 cows. So that, it's equivalent to 1,200 gallons of milk a day. So then we got to figure out how we want to break that down into what products.
sure. The one thing that surprised me so much looking at trends would have been this fairly recent decline in milk consumption, or at least liquid milk consumption. Like when I grew up in Illinois, we did not grow up on a farm, but we drank. It was like we did with as much milk as we drank with the four of us. We always had milk at breakfast and we had milk at dinner. And now as an adult, both of my kids, my son, who's 15, I think drinks his body weight in milk every day, and I'm pretty sure that's why he's 6'3" and has passed me up here. But same way, we have milk for breakfast, milk in the evenings. My kids drink milk before they go to bed. Like we drink a ton of milk. Is this what's necessary for dairy operations these days, to have this diversity where you're doing, I was playing around on your website. So you've got milk, cheese curds, butter, heavy cream, and ice cream. And I'll definitely get to the ice cream here coming up here in a bit. We're big fans of the ice cream in our family. But is that what's necessary these days? Because of, it seems like a lot of families just aren't drinking as much milk as they did a generation or two ago.
Um, you are correct. The milk consumption has been dropping a lot since the 70s. Um, but I think there's been a slight increase over the past year. Not a lot, but it's
Hmm.
been on the rebound, I
In
like to say.
this protein craze?
So that's always a good sign.
Hmm.
Milk is a very nutritious product. And I wish we can get more people out there to drink more milk, but there's so many more options out there of other drinks that you can consume, so milk is a tough one to sell anymore, just because of all the other options. um, so what was your other main question again?
Well, just if that's why you diversify in the way you do in your production of, yeah,
Right,
maybe
okay.
people aren't drinking it as much, but they're consuming it. People eat a ton of cheese these days, so that's
Right.
got to help.
So yeah, another problem that, or challenge that we have, is the milk consumption's down a little bit, and people want cream, they want the fat, they want the ice
Hmm.
cream, they want the butter, they
Hmm.
want the cheese. So what does that leave us with? That leaves us with more skim milk. Once you um, take the cream off the top, that leaves you with skim milk. So we have a surplus of skim milk. So that's a challenge for us, is what do we do with the skim milk, you know, because people don't consume that as much anymore. So we can do sales, and then, or we can, give out free milk for a while. We can take some to the food bank. So we have options of how we want to handle the excess skim milk. So that's another challenge that we have, is the demand of, ice cream and other products like that.
Can you maybe, this might be a hard question, but maybe percentage wise, how much of your skim milk on property is almost excess, where you have to do these alternatives like you're talking about, like helping out the food
Um,
bank and others? Like, is there a ballpark percentage you could put on that?
it's not a whole lot. It could
Okay.
be, let's say, 500 gallons a week.
Okay.
Um, some of a lot of it would go to the food bank, and we get um, our costs covered for it, as far as a price value. But
Yeah.
at least it gets out to people's mouths. It's healthy for them, and it's not expired.
Yeah. What's the
So
time frame on that? So how quickly do you have to do that?
we put 21 days expiration date on the milk the day it's processed.
Okay.
Actually, I'm sorry, it's 24 on the skim and then 21 on the whole milk. So there's a little
Okay.
bit there. So being that it's local, it's fresh, we can extend the date on it quite a bit.
And
So
so you're covering your costs that way as it goes to the food banks then as well.
yep, yep. And people are enjoying a good quality product, and helps out a lot.
Will you talk a little bit about? I'm just fascinated by the diversity that you all have set up. Um, Talk about the tourism side of this, because it seems to me, as the outsider learning about the business over these last 2 years, one of the biggest hurdles is getting both politicians, but the politicians and just our communities across the country to better understand how agriculture works, because we have fewer people working in it. And so as I look at what you all are doing with tourism, that could be really important. And I appreciate that maybe it's a revenue stream for you as well, but bringing people in on site to learn, okay, this is a cow behind me. This is the finished result in this incredible bowl of ice cream you're about to dig into. Here's how this all works. How important is that for you, the educational side of it, but then also the additional revenue stream for you?
It's very important for us because a lot of the tourists that come here are consumers in the area. So if we open our farm up to these consumers, they feel like they're a part of the farm and a part of the family when they can come out and see the cows, see where their products are made. Um, and then we get, about 1,200 school kids every summer come out to the farm to visit with the cows, see the kangaroos, and see where their products are made, stuff like that. So it, they go to the store and see the kangaroo logo on our milk brand, and then they can put two together, saying, "Hey, yes, I was at that farm. This is where the products are made." So that's a huge avenue for us to show people that, hey, we respect what you're doing for us by coming to visit, and here, and we give them a good quality product.
We don't have a lot of wild kangaroos in Iowa, so explain where the logo came from.
So I visited Australia back in 2001 for a couple of weeks for vacation, and I really enjoyed those kangaroos while I was over there. So on the flight back, that was about the same time we were anticipating on processing our own milk, getting the construction started and all that stuff. So I just thought of the idea on the flight home, because I think it was an 8-hour flight home. And I said, gosh, I'm going to get some kangaroos on the farm, and we're going to put that on our logo instead of a cow,
Mm-hmm.
And I figured it's no different than Tony the Tiger and Frosted Flakes. It's just something different, and the kids would enjoy it, And I said, well, if we're going to have it on the logo, we're going to have some live kangaroos on the farm. So that's how the idea, developed, and it's been working out nicely.
All right, so you have live kangaroos on the farm?
We have 6 of them, yes.
All right, what do they think of the Iowa winter? It's a little different than Australia.
They do very well in the wintertime. They grow a winter coat, so just like a normal animal would, so they stay warm. We do have a barn that has heat lamps, and they're well bedded in the wintertime, so it works out pretty well. So they're a lot of fun.
Okay, now we joked before we started here about the challenges of the industry. Would your ancestors' operations still be rolling here if you all didn't expand into the creamery, into the agritourism? Would you be as sustainable as you are if you didn't take that risk 2 decades ago?
Highly unlikely. The main reason is because the input costs today are so extreme that I don't know how a small farmer can make it work with the price of milk it is today.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to rely on off-farm income, which most small farms do now. They have to rely on off-farm incomes.
Yeah.
Government subsidies. Dairy farmers don't get a whole lot of that for help. So the dairy farmers are just basically, I feel we're just one ginormous family trying to do what we can, to provide a good local food, in the industry, in the community. So whether you're farmers in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, we're all in this together to provide a good quality product to the consumers.
How many people are sustained by your farming operation, the overall operation?
So there's 5 families. My parents have 15 grandkids. The oldest one, I believe, is 23, 24, something like that. So the youngest is in 8th grade, and he's 14. So there's quite a range there for the 7th generation. Yeah, so that answers that question. That's what we have.
And you have 150?
150 milking cows, total livestock with the Wagyu beef breed that we have, and the young stock between 300 and 325-ish, I suppose. So.
All right, so what's the hardest part? I mean, obviously, balancing the numbers is so hard, which you've already so thoughtfully explained how you've spread out into other areas here. from what I understand and what I've learned about the industry, just I mean, the labor is so intense here, right? And you need year-round labor. So do you all, because of the size of your family, the size of your operation, and the diversity of it, can you handle all the labor with family members?
No, we have a fair number of off-farm labor.
Okay.
Um, with we have two retail stores as well, one in Waterloo and one in Cedar Falls, and then we have a farm store. So between the stores and the farm labor, we employ about 50 to 60 people. So of those 50 to 60 people, we may have 10 to 15 family members is all.
Okay.
So it's quite a difference. And maybe someday, seventh generation, once they're done with college or they're off doing something else for a couple of years, and if they want to come back, the doors are wide open.
So where do you see what do we need? What does the industry need to be better supported, do you think?
Well, there's one thing that happened just this past year. Last fall, the USDA had funding for local foods
Mm-hmm.
applied, and then this spring they pulled it. So that kind of had an effect on us and then other local foods, because they rely on that funding to provide for themselves in the farm and produce local foods for the consumers. But since they pulled that funding, they couldn't rely on that sale. So that was been one issue that we weren't really fond of, by the government taking that away. And it was $11 million that Iowa lost.
Yeah.
With that funding that was taken away. So that money could have gone a long way, whether it was tomato farmers or beef farmers or dairy or produce farmers, anything. So that was the big issue that we had this year anyway.
And that funding allowed local family producers like yours to supply in the region there. And without that, that really takes that away, right? Like, how do you make up for that?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer. You
Yeah.
just keep grinding, and try to find a way to make up for that. As you know, they also took that funding away from schools.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of hurts a little bit. And you get a good quality product going into people's mouths, a local product. That's the best thing you can do, for these young generational kids, so you just have to keep grinding and try to make ends meet without that funding. It's like I said before, all of us dairy farmers are in this together, trying to make it go without the government funding that we could use sometimes. So farmers are stubborn, and we'll keep going because that's what we love to do, and we usually find a way to make it work.
I've really been intrigued by, and I suppose concerned by, when you remove a federal support system like this, we have, as you know, in our state, many of our smaller communities are shrinking in population. And then as the people start to leave, you're losing employers, you're losing resources for schools, all those kinds of things. So while the federal government and the administration may be looking at ways to immediately save some money on things, it pulls away guaranteed income streams for so many local producers. And those streams are what helps sustain your operations, but so many other operations across the country in smaller communities. And what are we going to do in the years ahead to provide more stability, more guarantees for some of these smaller producers, because without, like, you mentioned you have 50, 60 employees and you're spread into several different communities, but you start taking those opportunities away. What are we replacing this with? That is one of the things that kind of fascinates me. And it's your day to day, so you're living this stuff. So I'm wondering how are we going to support these smaller communities so that they can actually grow, and not just try to keep what you have, but actually grow, which would benefit hundreds and hundreds of communities, thousands of communities across the country.
Yeah, it's tough. When we started in 2004, we wanted to basically get paid for our hard work and basically skip out the middleman.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we made our jobs a lot harder, but the benefits are there. So if we don't have this funding, other produce farmers may have to look at it the same way. Maybe do more on their own to lower the input cost to skip out that middleman.
Mm-hmm.
Until something happens with some funding. But once again, it's a big risk, just like we had a big risk in 2004. It's just unfortunate that with a produce farmer, you only have a certain set of time in a year to make that produce, whereas a dairy farmer, you have product coming in every day. So that's a big challenge for them, unless they do some sort of greenhouse structure or whatever to
Mm-hmm.
grow throughout the year, which is possible. So that's one thing those type of people can try to do to enhance their volume and provide for people throughout the year. So when people rely on that funding, it's really hard to stay afloat when they don't have it. So they just have to figure out how to make ends meet, or finding off-farm jobs to make it go.
Are you 100% dairy? Are you doing anything as far as producing your own to help with input costs to feed? For those in our audience who are watching this rather than listening to this, you have this stunning photo behind you in our conversation right now, and you have incredible photos on your website as well. But are you doing anything, growing hay, growing any other kind of feed, producing any kind of feed to help manage those input costs on your own, or are you bringing all that in?
We grow all of the feed for the livestock.
Okay.
So we have 450 acres to feed the livestock. So 90% of the feed is grown here on the farm.
Okay. So that's going to help out a little bit with that you can at least control some of that.
Right. Yep. This year has been a really good year for moisture, but it's been challenging trying to get the hay up because all the rain, but the corn crop looks pretty good. As far as the dairy farming in general, with the low corn prices, that helps the input costs for a dairy farmer.
Sure.
Of course, it hurts the crop farmers, but
yeah,
supply and demand, so yeah, we'll have to see what happens, but most of the feed is grown here on the farm.
Where are things going for you? You're big, this big expansion was 20 years ago, so you're 2 decades into that. Where do you see things going? Or do you hope or is it kind of status quo with what you're doing?
For now, it's status quo. I guess the biggest challenge right now, you don't want to just go out and expand to 300 cows, because in our situation, we have to have a home for that product, because we can't rely on a milkman to come pick up our milk. So we have to find the demand for our product before we can go out and expand our herd.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for us to do that, I've been working on this A2A2 milk um, idea for about 5 years now, going on 7 years now, trying to have a new brand of milk out there that we can sell on our shelves. And it's just done by genetics. So we don't have to bring in any sort of input costs. It's just all done by breeding. So we can have another niche out there that we're trying to do. So that's kind of the avenue that I'm going for right now, is being status quo, but adding that new brand of milk to try to get more people to consume more fluid milk that way. So our creamery is only so big. We're maxed out with cows in the creamery size. So it's kind of, yeah, if we're dumping 500 gallons of skim milk a week, or, giving it to food bank or whatnot, then maybe this A2A2 avenue is going to help reduce that a little bit and give us a boost of a new idea out there.
And will you talk a little bit more about that? What makes that unique?
A2A2 milk is basically a protein in the cow's milk that is easier to digest. So you got an A1 protein and an A2 protein. And if you get a cow that has A2A2 and is missing that A1 protein, that protein that's missing is able to be consumed by a consumer that has stomach issues or something like that. So basically I wouldn't say it's so much a lactose intolerant issue. It's just a protein issue that people can consume easier.
Okay, so the challenge of building that out for you is what?
You have to pick out certain genetics, bulls or sires that carry that A2A2 gene. So then I had to test my whole herd for A2A2 and basically figure out which cows are missing that gene, and then continue to breed bulls that are A2A2 to try to get the whole herd to be A2A2 milk, so that we can market our product that way. We can still market our product the way we're doing it now. We can just add that to the label, and hopefully that increases more people to consume more milk, because like I said before, milk is such a nutritious product that we need more people to consume more dairy products.
So. Okay, all of this stuff you've talked about today is important. All right, we've gone into a lot of stuff here. The only thing my 9-year-old daughter is going to care about, though, and this is the way I want to end our conversation, she's just going to want to know about the ice cream, let's be honest. That has been our family, both my family, my wife's family. Whenever we go anywhere, we always go to local creameries when we can find them. Our big family vacation this year was to Maine, to Acadia National Park. We found a couple of cool ones there. They have these Maine blueberries that are like all the rage up there, these wild blueberries. So we had this incredible wild blueberry ice cream. But no matter where we go on our summer vacation trip, that's always a big thing. I grew up with one in Southern Illinois that we went to, and that thing is still exists. So whenever we go home to see my mom, she always takes us there, and same in Florida where my wife's family's from. So could you please share your top 1 or 2 flavors and what makes them so unique, so I can try to impress my daughter when I talk to her about this interview?
Well, thanks for the idea. I like the wild blueberry ice cream idea.
Ah, nice.
That's one thing that we have not thought about yet, so I'll have to pass that on.
Oh, it's so good. So good. So good.
That would be pretty good. Well, my favorite is the plain vanilla, because you can add whatever you want on top of it. So that is the highest sale. The most sales is the vanilla.
Okay.
But a lot of people like mint chocolate chip and then cookie dough. I think are pretty popular throughout the young 9-year-old kids, you know.
You are 100%. My 15-year-old would take the mint chocolate chip based on what you just said, and cookie dough they'd both have, but my daughter would totally, she's all about cookie dough.
But we do have 25 different flavors of ice cream, so there's a lot to choose from. So it's a tough choice some days, but some days you can pick vanilla, and some days you can pick butter pecan, you know.
So who's the genius behind the flavors, and how do you decide what's worth trying?
That's mostly the creamery manager and his employees that they come
Okay.
up with some ideas, and um, they don't really bring it to the table, which is fine. If they have an idea, just do it, you know.
Try it out.
It's someone's gonna like it.
There is no bad ice cream. 100% with that.
Yeah.
100%. Blake, thanks a lot for the conversation. Thanks for kind of walking us through all the different areas that you all do in this 7th generation operation. We really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Cows, kangaroos, and ice cream. Sounds like a field trip, right? You can learn more about Hansens Dairy in our profile piece about Blake Hansen. Find it in the American Farmland Owner newsletter. It's the place where landowners get their news. Check it out now at AmericanFarmlandOwner.com. Hey, they also have merch there. There's merch, a lot of merch. You can check that out too. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and thanks for caring about the future of our farmland.